So we've kind of moved slightly on from the idea of who actually sets the news agenda, but that's all good. I think the next question is related to that, which is around, has the balance of power shifted? That actually sounds a bit overly grand, but has the balance between, say, these 4 areas and roles represented in our panel, has that changed? And do you feel any differences in your roles about how you work together?
Well, mine didn't exist before, so
okay.
Yes.
You've been doing it a while now, though, Eva. So do you find it's on the up or on the?
It's changed, I think, because of the circles I move in. A lot of people are finding that they're under a huge amount of pressure by the recruitment industry, especially on LinkedIn. That it's a feeding frenzy and it's very uncomfortable. And I would suggest to everybody that's skilled, switch your settings to no contact, because the erosion, I think erosion to me is the key thing here, is that PR is being eroded by digital agencies who do SEO, they do social media, they have this claim to do all these things, and I think this audience here, you know, this human, this, you know, being the people part of digital, it's all about, you know, a good solid understanding of comms and marketing fundamentals.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone like to come on that point?
Yeah, just a quick poll actually. How many people have a sort of dedicated digital person or department within their organisation?
Okay. Hands right up. Great. Okay. So
and is that normally within a marketing?
Okay. And also, how many of you are that person?
Interesting.
Sorry,
I think what we find is digital transcends so many different areas of marketing, and yet normally there's just one person or a very small team within a bigger marketing team doing it. And I mean, if you're an e-commerce based company, if you're a product company like we are, you have to be involved in operations, you have to be involved in customer services, obviously marketing's a big part of it, whereas actually in every other part of the organisation you have someone that looks after marketing, you have someone that looks after the brand communications potentially, PR, and they're all segmented into different roles. And then as a digital role, you're asked to have a really good understanding of all of those areas of the organisation. And so I think that's something that brands and companies are a bit slow at adopting, sort of realising that they're employing someone that essentially has to be an expert in loads of different areas. And so I think what we will start seeing is digital departments within organisations growing, because you can't be really, really specialised on PR and comms and social media and e-commerce and SEO. So I think either people outsource it to agencies, and obviously we have a very good PR agency, we have a very good digital agency, and then you're having to put your faith in that. But then still, you have to be the person that pushes back on things or accepts things, and you're putting your faith in those agencies. So I think that's something that we'll really start to see expanding, is internal digital departments to be able to actually manage.
Well, this was something we actually tweeted it a few hours ago on the Mynewsdesk UK account, which was, I can't remember the publication, but it was actually a bit of a pessimistic look at the PR industry, because it was actually that point that a lot of these services or skills are actually moving in-house, and then there's some other ones that are actually moving to a digital agency, and this is one shift that possibly people are seeing happening. Is that something that you've seen, Paul?
Absolutely. I think the PR industry is quite slow to react to this, and I think both of you are absolutely right when it comes to things are changing in terms of job roles. A progressive-looking PR person nowadays need to be skilling up on things like search engine optimization, things like content creation. It's not just about having a relationship with someone and selling a story. There's so much more to it. There's a technical angle to knowing what's going on in the tech world. There's staying on top of all that. There's staying on top of the news, all the social media news that comes through, because it changes so fast. And there's a whole ream of stuff that anyone who wants to get on in the PR industry and is coming into it nowadays has got to start looking at this stuff. Because if they don't look at it now, give it 5 or 10 years, there's no place. I think the industry as a whole has to change a bit to take all of those things into account. Some agencies are leaving things like SEO and digital content creation to other specialists. I think that's wrong personally, because I think you'll find their market share being eroded until there's nothing left. So yeah, it's a big complex area. It's moving very fast, but it's one of the key things that are happening. I mean, the title of today is The Future of Communications. To me, that is the key thing that's happening, is this shift in roles between what someone does, you know, and yourself, you said you've got 2 or 3 different roles in your life now of different work things, and that's happening to everyone. I mean, I blog, you know, it's not, well, it's part of my job, but it's not necessarily, it's kind of separate to my job, it's just something else to do, and a lot of people are doing that nowadays in the communications industry.
The boundaries for individuals are becoming very blurred within there, and that's usually a benefit for the organisation, because those people are the most committed, passionate people, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got 4 of them here. John, did you want to add anything to that?
I actually just wanted to come back on this point that was made from the audience about this gap between management and sort of the digital champion. And I hope that's going away, certainly from my experience of kind of being involved in this stuff for quite a while. When I started at ITN, it was the adjunct. It was the guys in the corner of the room that were doing the digital stuff. And then as I was there, this was about 2005, what you tended to do is you tended to identify some, it's not on your cards, digital champions. Identify people who were really quite keen on this stuff.
You're not using the word evangelist.
I'm not using the word evangelist.
Left that one
but I will when I get home. It's a very good word. But you know, I think the point is, I think it's changed, and the fact that someone like me who has a print journalist background but also has a digital background got a job as a deputy for a print publication that's going to be 100 years old in a year's time, kind of, in a sense, tells you all you need to know. People at the organisation I work at understood that the future wasn't just print, and therefore they had to bring someone on who understood a little bit, at least, about this other stuff. I'm not saying that's the same everywhere else, and of course you'll get resistance, and you definitely get resistance from journalists, because they are the most sceptical trade out there. And so clearly when the Telegraph tried to integrate its print and its digital, there was lots of resistance. But they ended up doing just that anyhow, despite the resistance, and most people kind of understand why they're doing it. Ditto at The Guardian, when Guardian Unlimited started in sort of the early 90s. They basically had the worst part. I mean, Jan will probably be able to tell you some of the stories if she was here, but they had the worst part of 119 Farringdon Road. Now it's completely integrated. And the key thing, which kind of goes back to this point about people's roles changing and the future of communications for a journalist would write the piece, disappear down the pub.
Yeah.
Now the journalist is trying to sell their piece. Show me a journalist who doesn't want their stuff to be read. Journalists want their stuff to be read, and one of the ways they help to do that is they've developed their own personal brand through social media, and they're playing part of the role of pushing it out there.
So journalists are becoming marketers, and PR people are becoming digital specialists, and I'm sure there's some other combinations as well. Does anyone want to add anything on the sort of shift? Yes.
Yeah, no, I'd like to ask, following on what you said before, what is the best way to really stay on track of everything that is changing? I'm an ex-television journalist, Bloomberg. Just started my own PR agency, working with Spanish companies, a completely different world, like you say. Twitter, what is to stay on track, somebody that is fast. I just think that journalism is easier than PR at the moment.
Advice then from the panel on staying on top of things. One from each of you. Who wants to go first?
I've got 2. That's all right. They're kind of the same. First one, for me, you might not know the answer, but it's subscribing to blogs, using Twitter. I'm not going to name any specific. Yeah, futurecomms is a great one. No, it's subscribing to. It's a case of finding out the blogs that actually you have a connection with, because there are loads out there that cover social media and tech, but you have to find the ones that you have a natural affinity to. But it's subscribing to those and reading them, like, religiously. I sit down, I get up at sort of 6:30 with my daughter, and I will sit there once she's got a breakfast and read blogs for an hour, and that's before I've got to the office, because that's the only way I can find the time to keep on top of what's changing. Other people do it by using Twitter heavily.
And what was your other tip then, Paul?
Sorry, Twitter was the other one. Other people, will subscribe to a lot of people on Twitter. I find that you miss more than you cover. If you really want to stay on top, subscribe to them and read them in your own time.
what methods does Eva use to keep her?
Well, starting out with personal recommendation from bloggers who I'd met who kindly came and commented on my blog, and that's how communities begin. And I suggest if you are a PR or a journalist that you could quite easily do the same in a non-cynical way. And I think if there's a particular area that you're looking at, if you're going to a blog or a site, always look at their blog roll, and then you can start finding these interconnected communities. And I would say actually get Flu, stay in bed for 3 days and just go online, because that's you have to immerse yourself, and it can be also quite a rewarding experience as well. So.
And is that actually the experience for all of you? You're kind of self-taught in this way. Did you ever have training or mentors, or is it all just discovered online?
I mean, I'm not from a digital background originally. I started off in marketing and publishing. And publishing, I think, were fairly late, especially the industry I was in, were quite late to catch on to digital. And I'd actually been at the organisation a couple of years before the Kindle came out, and they were like, oh God, we've got to have a digital department. Why don't we have a digital department? So they went around and sort of cherry-picked a few people from editorial, from marketing, from PR, and formed a digital department, and then we went through some quite intensive training then. But that was all when I was at the very beginning of my career, and I think that gave me the key skills to feel like I wanted to go and try and do it on my own for a bit. So I started out my own digital agency in France and worked with some small to medium-sized companies, sort of really setting them up with websites, trying to teach them the sort of core skills. And from there, it really is self-taught, because it does change incredibly quickly. And I think to stay on top of it, it is just about research. I think one of my key bits of advice would be to follow what your competition are doing, follow what like-minded people in your industry are doing. There's a reason why a lot of people, I think, in the product industry aren't going out and doing majorly different things, because there are best practices to be learned from what other people are doing. And you don't always have to be first to market with everything. Sometimes it is better to take a step back and review what other people are doing and review what's working for them before you inform your own strategies and your own decisions.
We talked about this, Katie and I, just outside there, that actually now everything is out there with your competitors as well. So think about the blogs. I mean, if you're at a PR agency, they're all blogging about what they're doing, so they're not keeping that close to their chest. And the example that Katie had was, if you're a product company, obviously every company has some sort of product, but if you're a retail company, that kind of innovation, and you've got an innovation community, that's there for everyone to see. Potentially your competitors can see that as well.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we've considered recently inviting our online communities to be involved in our new product development, and of course that does mean that our competitors are going to potentially get wind of what we're doing. But actually, before the digital age was that still existed. I mean, you've still got that word of mouth thing. There's still the 7 steps of Kevin Bacon, where somebody knows somebody that knows somebody. And I think that not to be afraid of stuff, not to be afraid of things being so public, because there are pitfalls, but there's plenty of real positives from it as well.
Well, this brings us on to the final question then. How does the corporate communicator need to adapt? And I'm tempted to start with you, Katie, since you are the corporate communicator on the panel.
I think I'm in a bit of an interesting position because I manage digital for Europe. It's very much about looking at all of those different countries and helping those countries to implement their strategy effectively. And of course that means that you can't have a one-size-fits-all strategy, and you do have to look at the different objectives and goals and cultures of each separate audience in each separate country. I mean, really broadly, you could say that a Remmington consumer is 18 to 55, maybe a bit older for the men's shaving category. But then breaking down into that and what those people, what that audience are interested in, and what channels you're going to communicate with, is sort of the next step on from that. And I think for a brand, what's difficult for us is you've got 2 steps. You've got to convince the organisation and all of the marketing teams in Russia and France and Spain that you should be investing in digital and in digital comms. And then you've got to give them the tools to go out and do it well. So it's back to this question about there being that gap between potentially your management and where you are and being a digital evangelist within your organisation. And I think just being really open and educating your organisation of the benefits as even as a starting point before you then actually go out and start doing things publicly and targeting your consumer. That's a really good place to start, is educating your organisation about it.
Mm-hmm.